Now, a legal challenge has been spearheaded by James Manson, and is asking the courts to decide if this abuse of power can stand. And let me tell you, the stakes couldn't be higher. Now the courts have agreed to expedite this case, but let's be honest, if this drags on until March 24th when Parliament comes back, the fight's over. James, thank you for meeting me with today. James, what does this expedited hearing actually mean for the case, and how does it impact the push for accountability?
Thanks, Dan. Well, it doesn't mean much more than the federal court agreeing with my clients that at the very least, this case deserves urgent attention, right? I don't think that it's going to be a good idea for us to try to, read into anything in the decision. The decision is only a preliminary decision, and so what the court did, as you know, Dan, yesterday, was it granted our motion to expedite the matter, and it also set out a timetable for the parties to, work towards as we get closer to the hearing date. And I think it's important to understand that the decision yesterday is not a final decision on the merits, and we will have to wait for that until, whenever the court makes its final ruling after the hearing in February 13th, February 14th. So I am encouraged that the court was able to conclude that, the matter is urgent. And also, I was encouraged that the court concluded that the matter could also be heard fairly, um, by the 13th and 14th of February. So one of the things, of course, Dan, as you know, that's very important to the court is making sure that both sides get a fair opportunity to prepare the case and to make their points, to create a written argument, because, Dan, these things take time. I have actually seen recently, like last night, Dan, on social media, a few people, commenting on the decision yesterday and asking, hey, why is it still taking so long? I mean, why do we have to wait all the way till February 13th and 14th?
Sorry, James, you cut out there. Um, Moving on, I suppose some people are questioning the timeline, James, saying it doesn't feel very expedited. Can you explain why the court's decision to hear this case in February is still considered quick in legal terms?
TV, Dan, it's not like in the movies. People, lawyers, especially competent, good lawyers, like hopefully our side will be, and the Crown, and obviously will be. There's lots of very intelligent lawyers on the other side. Um, Everybody needs time to refine their arguments and to make sure that all the right materials are in front of the court so that the judge will be able to make the best decision that he or she can make. So it's not like a situation where we can just plow into court tomorrow and, start just talking to the judge without any preparation. That's just not how it works. So 1 month, or in this case, less than a month, is very quick, and it will still, I'm pretty sure it will still give the court time to consider its decision, write its reasons, and then issue a decision in time for there to be some practical value to this case. As you know, Dan, March 24th is when Parliament is supposed to come back. If the court can make its reasons, hand them down by the end of February, for example, that's still a number of weeks before the scheduled return date. And this is, I think, one of the points also that the court mentioned yesterday in its reasons. There is a threat from the United States. It's a serious threat. It's being taken very seriously. And if Parliament can resume sitting and do its constitutional job to oversee the government and also to help the government with whatever legislative response it can bring to the table, that would be good. And the court, I think, recognized that. So this is not to say that the court is going to agree with us at the end of the day. We don't know what the court's going to do.
Canadians are thinking that this is a win. But do you feel like this is a win? Because a lot of Canadians are cynical about Canadian democracy right now. They think that the Liberal Party is bigger than, the federal government. They think that they're bigger than the Trump threats. What do you say to those people?
Well, I do agree that this decision is a win. I mean, we were successful yesterday in getting the case, heard on an expedited basis. So that's great because, of course, you can appreciate, Dan, that if we were not successful, then the case would have less impact, on a practical basis. Um, so, but I think you've actually hit on something that I think is important. It's not, at least in my client's view, it's not about this prime minister, really. It's not about the Liberal Party. It's about the Constitution. It's about the proper way that things ought to work in our system. Our system is very important. It doesn't matter what party happens to be governing. We've got something called the rule of law. And the rule of law means that nobody is above the law, that the law applies equally to everybody, including a prime minister, including a governor general. And so our view, I think our argument will be that it doesn't matter which party is happens to be governing at the moment. We need to know what are the limits of a prime minister's power to prorogue, and then of course, once we have that answer, we can assess whether this particular prime minister's use of the prorogation power was or wasn't legal. But so, I mean, naturally, it's a little bit about politics because, of course, the Liberal Party is having a leadership race, and that's part of our argument with respect to why we say that this particular use of the power was unlawful. But ultimately, it's not about party politics. It's about the Constitution.
Right. And James, I think everyone agrees with you. I think this is a bipartisan issue that no party, Liberal, NDP, Conservative, should be above the Parliament. When there's a threat, especially with the American threat that's incoming, we shouldn't be able to just freeze Parliament and have a vote on who's the leader of the party. If you wanna vote, there's an option for that, and it's called an election. And I
That's
think
right.
I think that that's the biggest takeaway from this, James. James,
I agree there.
yeah, yeah. James, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me this morning. We're going to be paying attention to this very closely.
Fabulous. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, James.